Can't really tell whether this is in focus or not, so I'm really hoping so. Anyway, this is the consolidation work for component 3 test, and we're on the third paper, and this is question 3 about harbour seals. Lovely. So, reading the information, because it'd be stupid not to. Myoglobin is a type of protein that works in a similar way to haemoglobin. So what do I know about haemoglobin? It carries oxygen. It's found inside muscle cells. The table shows the myoglobin concentration and oxygen carrying capacity, and there we have them there, and we've got units and everything, from a variety of terrestrial and marine mammals. So we've got dogs, humans and rats here, and then if we look at this concentration here, all our seals have higher what? Myoglobin. And then we've got oxygen carrying capacity in muscle, and again it's much higher in the seals. And that probably leads me to the conclusion that it's in the muscle. So, harbour seal is a marine mammal which lives and hunts for food in the sea. It's well suited to environments and spends long periods of time underwater when hunting. And what do I know about water? Water's got less oxygen in it. And if it's under for a long time, it's probably holding its breath. Is what I'm thinking when I'm reading that. So let's read the first question then. A harbour seal has a muscle mass of 60% of its total body mass. Calculate the muscle mass of a 70 kilogram harbour seal and use this, so when you calculated it, use that number to calculate the total oxygen carrying capacity of its myoglobin. So we're going to use this number and this number, and we're going to use it for the harbour seal. I'm just going to put a nice big box around there so I don't get distracted and use the wrong numbers. Harbour seal, we're only dealing with harbour seals. So, muscle mass is 60% of the total body mass, so first of all I need to know what the muscle mass is. So, 60%. 60 over 100 of 70 kilograms equals, trusty calculator, 60 shared by 100 equals times 70 equals 42 kilograms. Use this to do the total oxygen carrying capacity. So the oxygen carrying capacity, I'm going to use that number. So every kilogram of muscle can carry 69.8. So 42 times 69.8. 69.8 equals 2,931.6 centimetres cubed of oxygen. Good one. Okay, a 70 kilogram human would have an oxygen carrying capacity of 300 centimetres cubed of oxygen bound to myoglobin. So that's smaller than that. Using the data in the table, explain the difference in the oxygen carrying capacity of the muscles of these mammals and suggest how this would be an advantage to the seal. So I'm looking at the relationship between this and this. So what we can say is we've got that harbour seals have more myoglobin. Okay, so seals have more myoglobin. than humans. And of course I'm going to say, give us some data. So for example, harbour seals have 52.1 grams per kilogram, and humans have 6 grams per kilogram. And sometimes that will be worth a mark and sometimes it won't. It's always worth putting it in if it's worth a mark, even if anything else is wrong. That'll be okay. So, what might that mean? What do we know about myoglobin? Absolutely nothing. So, but this is holding its breath and it's underwater, so it's got to mean more oxygen for them. So, more, surely that's the adaptation, can be released when the seal holds its breath. To dive, or be underwater perhaps. Okay. All mammals have an organ known as the spleen, which acts as a reservoir for blood. It's storing up blood. When the seal swims underwater, the spleen contracts, forcing more blood into the general circulation. So at rest, all the blood's in the spleen, well, most of it, and when it's swimming underwater, it releases more. So what do we know about that then? More blood, I'm thinking more cells, more hemoglobin, more oxygen, probably. So, suggest, that means more than one answer, how this adaptation enables the seal to stay underwater for prolonged periods when hunting its prey. So, the seal, just give myself some think time now, will have more red blood cells in circulation when swimming. So there is, so this is just directly related to function of hemoglobin, I think. So there is more hemoglobin to carry oxygen. Where do they need it? Swimming along, it's quite active, isn't it? To the muscles. Could have said swimming muscles, maybe. What would be the advantage of that? So the cells can respire aerobically. So remember that when you're sort of talking about oxygen carriage, you're always talking aerobic respiration. For longer, so it just enables them to stay down under the water for longer, I would imagine. Okay. That's super duper. This isn't as difficult as it looks. Saw a picture of a seal and thought, oh no. So we've got 3 dissociation curves. We love a dissociation curve. And we've got myoglobin right the way over there on the left. What do we know about curves to the left? Left equals low oxygen. Left equals hemoglobin with higher affinity. And we know that that means fully saturated at low partial pressures. So we've got it's just our usual oxygen dissociation curve. I'm going to go through the axes. So explain the significance of the position, so over to the left, and shape. So I'm going to need to say something about perhaps the steepness of the curve. So if I just look at where it's really steep, it's steep there and there, and this is where it's releasing the oxygen. That's what the dissociation means. So position, let's deal with the position first, it's the easier one. So myoglobin has a curve more or further, some idea that it's a long way to the left of humans and llamas. I like writing the word llama, it's a great word. Let's explain that. So explain the position as myoglobin has a higher affinity for oxygen than hemoglobin. I'm just going to abbreviate hemoglobin there. Life's too short. So, what can we say? Just say something about saturation. It is fully saturated at low partial pressures of oxygen. Give a number. So when actually the adult's releasing, it's still pretty saturated. Number on there, just in case again there's a data worth. So what can we say about the shape? Myoglobin releases oxygen at very low partial pressures of oxygen. So at low partial pressures of oxygen, a small change in partial pressure of oxygen releases or results in a lot of oxygen release. Ah, super duper. Wow, I almost filled it up. But I think I've said 4 things. So I've said the curve to the left, I've explained that. I've explained that, and I've given another explanation, fully saturated, and I've given my evidence. Myoglobin releases oxygen at very low partial pressure, so it's only doing it then. And then I've said about I've explained the shape, that the small change gives a lot of oxygen release. I think that's a bit okay, that would be 4 marks. So, explain the position of the dissociation curve of the llama hemoglobin. So what do we know about llamas? They live at high altitude. So, llamas live at high altitude. And if you've not seen The Emperor's New Groove by Disney, I would definitely watch it. At high altitude. You'll never forget that a llama lives up a hill then. Where the environment has little oxygen. Might have put that lower partial pressure of oxygen in the air. I might put that in. A lower partial pressure, that would be better in the air. Llama hemoglobin, and don't forget that it is the hemoglobin that has the affinity and not the llama. Llama hemoglobin has a higher affinity for oxygen and fully saturates at the lower partial pressures of oxygen in the environment. And I think that's, you know, that's probably a much fuller answer than you would need for 2 marks. I've written almost as much there as I have for the 4 marks. Remember, it's quality, not quantity.